Dear students, good afternoon. Today is our second class on digital electronics. In the previous lecture, we discussed some of the topics on number systems. This class is an extension of the previous one. In previous lecture, we discussed about decimal to binary conversion, binary to decimal conversion, and so on. But other number systems such as the octal numbers and hexadecimal numbers were not discussed, as we didn't have enough time to discuss about all those topics. But in today's lecture we will go through those topics first, and after doing that I will get into the Boolean algebra part. What is Boolean algebra? Boolean algebra is particularly useful in simplification of digital circuits, and there are some certain rules that we can follow. Those will be handy for solving logic gates and so on. So without talking further, let's get into the problem. Let's get into the main content. Okay, so as I was telling you that in yesterday's lecture we discussed decimal to binary, binary to decimal, but there is another number system that is called the octal numbers. Octal number has a base of how much? It has a base of 8. Octal number has a base of 8. So if we try to convert a base 8 number to a base 10 number or a base 16 number, so there are some certain processes that we need to go along, or we have to follow. So octal has a base of 8, fine, but which number has a base of 16? Can you tell which number has a base of 16? Can you tell? Hexadecimal number has a base of 16. Hexadecimal number has a base of 16. Fine. Okay then. So let's make it full screen first. Okay, as I was telling you, this is our second lecture. Anyway, so octal number system, as you can see, so computer scientists are often looking for shortcuts to do things. One of the ways in which we can represent binary numbers is to use their octal equivalence instead. So instead of using binary numbers, we can use octal equivalence as well. It makes the system, not the system I should say, it makes the circuit, or it makes the logic easier for a computer scientist. So this is especially helpful when we have to do fairly complicated tasks using numbers. So when should we use this octal number system? So it is particularly helpful when we have to do fairly complicated tasks using numbers. So this is, in general, it is not needed, but if we are opting to do some complicated tasks, in that case this octal number system may be or might be used, right? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So the octal numbering system includes 8 base digits. It starts from 0 and it ends at 7. So these are the 8 digits, or these are the 8 base digits that we have. The octal numbering system includes 8 base digits. Fine. After 7, the next placeholder to the right begins with 1. What is meant by that? So as you can see, it starts with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But after that, you see, after 7 there is no number called 8. After that, right away we are writing down 10, then 11, 12, 13. Why is that? You can tell that the numbers are getting repeated, but the placeholder, next placeholder to the right, is beginning with a 1. right? After 7, the next placeholder to the right is beginning with a 1. So that actually means, as you can see, we started off with 0. After 7, we are again trying to repeat the 0, but what's happening? The next placeholder to the right starts with a 1, but in the left side we are writing down a 1 here, a 1, 12. So if I ask you after, let's say, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, what should we write? After 17 we must have to write another value, right? We have to write another digit, or we have to write another value. In that case, what should be the value in this place? Can you tell what should be our value? We are talking about the hexadecimal number system. Fine. So here we start the value ends at 7. Here the value ends at 17. So once the value ends at 17, what should be the next value to start with? Should we write 20? Should we write 20 and then 21 and then 22? Should it go like this? I'm not going to give you answer to this question. You try to think about this one. If you want, you can pause the video for a minute also. Go back to your reference book. It's given in chapter number 2. Some ideas are given in chapter 2 of your reference book. You can go through that one as well and try to answer my question. So I would suggest you to pause the video, not for 1 minute, 30 seconds is more than enough, I guess. Pause the video for 30 seconds, think about it, and tell me the answer when you are done. Your time starts now. Okay, so I hope you have got your answer. If not, try to ponder over this one a little bit. Now let's get into the next problem. Not problem, I should say, the next topic. So we are still talking about the octal numbers, octal number placeholders. Sometimes it is called weight values as well, or alternatively you can consider it as a placeholder. It's up to you. So as you can see, one number is given, that is 2, 4 and 1. You are told that it's a, what kind of number is this? It's an octal number. Fine. It's an octal number that has a base of 8. So do you find any similarity between this one and the one that we did for the binary system or decimal number systems? Do you find any similarity between this one? Is it somewhat similar? This, you see, is this thing, this 64 8s and 1s, are they similar to something else? Have we seen this before? Yes or no? Have we seen this before? Is it similar to something? Yes, of course. We saw similar kind of problem when we were solving the binary number problem. As you can see, this number 2, 4 and 1, it has 3 digits. So the rightmost, this one, I'm talking about this one, the rightmost number or rightmost value has some weightage, or you can say placeholders. If we try to construct a box like this, let's say there are 3 segments because of these 3 elements or 3 numbers or 3 digits, I should say 3 digits is more precise. So it will have a place value or placeholder or weightage, whatever you call it. This one should be one moment please. So okay, the mouse was, I was having some problem with my mouse. Okay, anyways, so as you can see, this one has a, it has a place value of 1, right? It will have a place value of 1. So if we multiply this 1 with 8, it will have a value of 8. Then this 8 is again getting multiplied with 8, that gives us a value of 8 into 8, 64. So let's say if we had another value, let's say 3, we had to make another segment here, and this 64 has to be multiplied with 8 once again, because we are dealing with the octal number system. As we don't have any other digits here, we don't have to think about it for the time being. Anyways, so instead of writing in this manner, we could have also thought it to be this one. First we have 8 to the power 0, then we have 8 to the power 1, and then we have 8 square. If we had another value, we could have written 8 cube. So this is how it goes, right? So you can think in this manner as well, constructing a table in this manner, or you could think of constructing a table keeping this format in mind: 8 to the power 0, 8 to the power 1, 8 square, and so on. It goes like this. Fine. So this is the exponential expression, you can say. Fine. So we got some idea about the placeholders. Now let's get into the next part. So in this slide, you are being asked to transform this decimal number to octal. It's a decimal number. Why? Because it's given with a place value of 10. I shouldn't say it's a place value, it's a base of 10. It is given with a base of 10. We are being asked to convert this decimal number to its octal equivalent. So this is what we need to do. The first thing we have to do is we have to divide it with 8. We have to divide it with 8. So if we divide this number with 8, we get a quotient of 5621, and the remainder is 2. Is it okay? And the remainder is 2. Then what? If I tell you that, do you find any problem with this slide, or is there anything that I have not written correctly? Should we write binary here, or instead of binary should we write octal? Have we done it the correct way? You try to figure it out and tell me your answer in the next class. Try to think about it. So as I was telling you that in the first step, the given number has to be divided with 8. We get a quotient of this one and the remainder becomes 2. Then again, the number that was found as a quotient should again be divided with 8. So now we get a quotient of 702, and now in this case we get a remainder of 6. Then again what happens? And we write it, this 6 can be written on the left hand side of this 2. Okay. One thing I would like to mention, that is, instead of writing this one as a table like this, you could have also written it like this one: 4 4 9 7 8 is getting divided with 8. So at the very first place we get a quotient of 5 6 2 2 and the remainder of 2. Then again, if we divide it 5 6 2 2 with 8 again, we get a quotient of 702, and you get a remainder of how much? You get a remainder of 6. Then again, if we divide 702 by 8, we get a result of, I shouldn't say result, we should say we get a quotient of 87, and the remainder is 6. Then again, if we divide 87 with 8 again, 87 with 8 again, we get a quotient of 10. We get a quotient of 10, and the remainder is 7, right? Then again, if we try to divide this 10 again with 8, we get a quotient of 1, and the remainder is 2. Again, if we try to divide this one with 8, we get a quotient of 0, and the remainder in this case is 1. So for writing down the final answer, we have to go from bottom to the top. In which direction? From bottom to the top. So if we go in this direction, from bottom to the top, we will get our answer like this: 1 2 7 6 6 and 2. So the final answer to this problem is, final answer to this question is 1 2 7 6 6 2. So this is how it goes. This is the final answer to this given problem. So I hope you have understood this one. It's almost similar to the problem that we solved for decimal to binary conversion. So the process for converting a decimal number to an octal number almost remains the same. So I hope you have understood this one. If not, ask me questions in the comment box, or you can ping me on WeChat as well. I will try to clarify your doubts. Now let's get into the next topic, that is number conversion review. Number conversions review. What do you understand by that? As we have already discussed most of the topics, most of the important topics of number conversion, ranging from decimal to binary, binary to decimal, decimal to octal, and so on. Now let's try to review that one quickly. So I have discussed this one in my previous lecture as well. Now let's try to summarize or wrap this up. So the decimal to binary, so we are talking about method 1. Use repeated subtraction. Subtract largest power of 2, then next largest, etc. What do you mean by this? Do you remember anything from the first slide? So subtract largest power of 2 and then largest, etc. So try to recall that one. Suppose x is 1564. So if this is given, if this number is given, x equals 1564, that has a base of 10, or you can say that is a decimal number. Okay, so 2 to the power 8 has a 2 to the power 8 becomes 256. 2 to the power 7 is 128, and 2 to the power 5 is 32, and so on, right? So we have 0 in all these positions. So as you can see, we are just repeating, we are just trying to revise the previous concept. I showed you a shortcut method, you remember I made a video on this one. I'm just trying to review that one. So as you can see, this 1564 is close to which value? 1024, right? If you don't remember, let's try to build a table once again, so that will be more convenient for you to understand, I guess. Anyways, so these all the steps are given here. You see, first, as you can see, this 1564 is close to 1024, isn't it? Let's try to build a table first. So first we will have 1, then 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 5, 12, 1024, and then we will have 1024, then we will have how much? 2048. Do you remember this table? I hope you remember this one. This table is made using the exponent. So as you can see, let's try to divide it into different segments. Once the segmentation is done, then I will try to explain. All the steps are actually given here. I don't think I have to explain it again and again, but for your better understanding, I'm trying to recap this once again. So the first value that we have written here, 1, is can be considered as 2 to the power 0 here. This one is 2 to the power 0. Then we have 2 to the power 1, 2 to the power 2, 2 to the power 3, 2 to the power 4, 2 to the power 5, and so on. It goes like this, right? So this is how it goes. So in the first step, what we have done is we try to figure out which value is close and less than the given number. The given number is 1564. The given number is 1564. This is close to, let's use the highlighter instead of this one. You see, this 1564 is close to which number? 1564 is close to 1024. We are picking 1024 instead of 2048 because 1024 is not only near but also it is less than that. So that's why we have picked it up. So 1564 minus 1024 gives us a value of 540, right? Then n equals 10, or n in the 2 to the power 10th position. Anyways, let's not get into these technicalities. So after subtracting, we have a value of 540. Now 1024, underneath we have to write a 1 here, fine. Or anyways, now this 540 is close to which value? This much, this one, right? 512. This 512 is not only close to 540, but also it is near to 540. So this is less than and near, so this is a great choice. So we have to pick this and write down a 1 underneath this one. 540 minus 512 gives us a value of 28. What about this one now? 28. This 28 is close to which one? You might say this 32 is close to 28. Yes, it is close, but 32 is not less than 28, so we could not, or we cannot pick this value. We cannot pick this value. Instead, we should pick this 16, and underneath this 16 we have to write down a 1 here, fine. So 28 minus 16 gives us a value of 12. Now this 12 is close to which value? We can pick this one, right? 8. Put a 1 underneath this one, okay? So 12 minus 8 gives us a value of 4. Now 4 is close to which value in the table? Not close, but exactly the same in this case, so that is also fine. So 4 is close to 4 in this table. Put a 1 underneath this one. Subtract 4 minus 4 gives us a value of 0. So we are done. We have come to the end of the solution. So what about the other values? We have to place zeros underneath all the other values to get the final answer to our question. Fine. So this is how we get the final answer to this problem. This was discussed earlier as well, but I thought it's better to talk about this one or give you a brief idea about this one. This one is also, I think you know this, division, right? Dividing with a base of 2 and then finally getting our final answer like this, isn't it? So the method, both the methods are correct, and it's up to you whether you use the previous one or this one. It's totally up to you, right? So after we are done with the division, we have to collect the remainders in reverse order. We have to collect the remainders in reverse order like this, okay? So what about binary to hex conversion? Hex means what? What do you understand by hex? Hex means hexadecimal numbers, right? So it's fairly simple, I should say. So the first thing we have to do is to divide the binary number into 4-digit groups. Let's say we are given with a binary number like this: 11 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 0. So and grouping this one, we have to make a group of 4. But as you can see, how many digits are given in this one? We have 11 digits. So this number cannot be grouped into 4-bit group without 0 padding. So that's why we have padded a 0 here to make it a group of 4. And this doing this group of 4 has to be done from right to left, I should say, from right to left. So as you can see, first we made a group of 4 here, then we made another group of 4. When we were trying to make another group of 4, we saw that we have 3 digits here, not 4, right? So we have padded a 0 on the left to make it a 4-bit group. This is 1, and then substitute hex digit for each group. What do you mean by that? Substituting hex digit for each group. So now I will ask you to pause the video for a while and try to find out the answer to this one. Please pause the video for 30 seconds, think about it, and when you are done, tell me your answer. I will also give you the answer in a while once you are done. You can then check your answers with mine. So I hope you have already gone through this. So now let's give you the answer. Okay. So as you can see, this 110 is equivalent to 6 in hexadecimal. This 001 is equivalent to 1 in hexadecimal. This 1100 is equivalent to C. Are you having trouble understanding this one? So some students might have trouble understanding this one, so I would suggest you to make a table. Let me write it down. I think it would be better for you to understand. Let me try to build a table. So let's say we have how many digits we have to build. So let's say if we start from, this is the binary part. Should we write binary? Yes, let's write. This is our binary part, and this part is dedicated for hex. In hexadecimal numbers, hex, right? In hexadecimal numbers, not octal. So in hexadecimal number we have, we start, so the value starts off with 0, then we have 1, then we have 2, then we have 3, then 4, then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. After 9 we don't have any value called 10. After 9 we have A, then we have B, then we have C, then we have D, then we have E and F, and so on. Let's not get into that one. We have till F we have. Okay, we know this from hexadecimal number systems. We know that it starts off with 0, then it goes like this. So 0 has the equivalent of 0, 0, 0, 0. What about 1? 1 can be written as 1, and it should be paired with 3 zeros on the left. What about 2? 2 is equivalent to 10, and 2 zeros should be paired here. What about 3? 3 is 11, and 2 zeros we have to pair it here. What about 4? 4 equals to 100, 1 0 has to be paired here. What about 5? 5 has to be written in this way, 101, another 0. 6 is 100, 101, and then we will be having 110 paired with 0. If I do a mistake, if I'm wrong, please let me know. So after that we will have how much? Can you tell? We have written till 6. That's fine. And after that 7 is 111 paired with a 0. 8 is 1000. 9 is 1001. Then A is 1010. B is 1011. Then how much? Then what should we write? 1011, right? Then can we write 1100? Yes, we can. C is 1100, then 1101, then E is 1110, and finally we will have 111111. This is our F. So this is how we can make a table to understand the relationship between binary and hexadecimal numbers. If you are having trouble doing the division, not division I should say, first you have to group it in a group of 4. Once you are done grouping in a group of 4, you can find the values from this table. You can find the values straight from this table. Okay, it's not working properly. Anyways, so finally as you can see, we have 110 corresponds to a value of 6 from the table. That's why we have written 6 here. Then we have 0001. This is this much, this one, right? So that's why we have written 1 here. What about this one? 1100 corresponds to this value. It corresponds to not working properly anyways. So this one corresponds to this value, so that's why we have written down this 1100. Fine. So in this manner we can convert a binary number to its corresponding hexadecimal. So hexadecimal to binary conversion, it's just the opposite way around. It's just the other way around. First we have to convert each hex digits to its equivalent binary. So as you can see, this hex digit was given 1E9C. So 1 can be written as 0001. E has a value of 1110. If you don't remember, I would suggest you to go back to the previous slide and see the table there. And 9 can be considered as 1001. C has a value of 1100. So once you are done, put a bracket outside and it has a base of 2. This is how it is being done. Then decimal to hex conversion. This is another method of doing it. So you see here a decimal number is given. This is method 2. Decimal number is given 1564. If we are trying to divide it, not divide it, we are trying to make it a hexadecimal number, and the given number is a decimal number itself. So we have to divide this 1564 with 16 at the very first place. So 1564 has to be divided with 16. We give it a value of 97. Then that 97 is getting divided with 16 again. It gives us a remainder of 12. Right. Then again it gives us a quotient of 6 and a remainder of 12. 12 is similar to 12 is equivalent to which value in hexadecimal, can you tell? It's equivalent to C. 12 is equivalent to, there is no such number called 12 in hex, because after 9 the hex value starts off with A again. So 12 is C. So as I was telling you that this 6 has to be divided again with 16. So that gives us a quotient of 0 and it gives us a remainder of 6. So finally we get an answer of this. So 6, 1 and C, this one. So the final answer that we get is 61C, and the final answer has to be written in this manner, 61C, and that has a hex value of 16. Okay, now let's get into the Boolean algebra. So Boolean algebra is needed for understanding the relationship between Boolean logic and digital computer circuits, and it is also helpful for learning how to design simple logic circuits and understanding how digital circuits work together to form complex computer systems. In the latter part of the 19th century, George Boole incensed philosophers and mathematicians alike when he suggested that logical thought could be represented through mathematical equations. How dare anyone suggest that human thought could be encapsulated and manipulated like an algebraic form? At that point of time, it was not accepted by a wide range of people, but as time passed by, it got accepted among the general community or normal people as well. So computers as we know them today are implementations of Bully's laws of thoughts. John Atanasoff and Claude Shannon were among the first to see this connection. In the middle of the 20th century, computers were commonly known as thinking machines and electronic brains. Many people were fearful of them. So, isn't it ridiculous? Nowadays, we rarely ponder the relationship between electronic, digital computers, and human logic. So, computers are accepted as part of our lives. Many people, however, are still fearful of them. In this chapter, you will learn the simplicity that constitutes the essence of the machine. So, Boolean algebra is a mathematical system for the manipulation of variables that can have one or two values. In formal logic, these values are either true or false. In digital systems, these values are on and off, 1 and 0, or high and low. So Boolean expressions are created by performing operations on Boolean variables. Common Boolean operators include and, or, and not. Okay, so common Boolean operators include these values. A Boolean operator can be completely described using a truth table. So truth table looks something like this. It will have some input values, it will have some output values. As you can see, there are two inputs, those are x and y. These are your inputs and the output is x, y. Okay, so as this statement suggests, a Boolean operator can be completely described using a truth table. We will get into the truth table in a while. The truth table for the Boolean operators and or are shown in the right. So this is a truth table for AND operator. This is the truth table for OR operator. The AND operator is also known as a Boolean product. The OR operator is the Boolean sum. So you can say the AND operator, this is our AND operator. This works as a AND operator works as a product, and this OR works as a sum. So when we are doing the AND operation, as you can see, there are two inputs, those are x and y. And how we have built this table? First we write down 0 0, this one, first 0, then binary 1, 1 is written as 0 1, then we have 2, or it can be considered as 10. After 1 in binary we have 10, and after 10 in binary we have 11. So this is, you can say, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. There is nothing called 2 in binary, so that's why I've written 10. Then we have 3. Fine. So as you can see, these are my inputs. X is this much and y is this much. So when this, as I told you, that this AND operator works as a multiplier, or you can say it acts as a product. So when 0 gets multiplied with 0, we get a value of 0. Then when this 0 gets multiplied with 1, we get a value of 0. Then this 1 getting multiplied with 0 gives us a value of 0. This one getting multiplied with 1 gives us a value of 1. Fine. As you can see, in all the cases it's working as a multiplier or it is working as a product, so it's fairly you can say easy for understanding. What about this OR circuit? What about OR? OR acts as a Boolean sum, or you can say it acts as a addition operator. So if we add up 0 and 0, we get a value of 0. When we add 0 with 1, we get a value of 1. When we add up 1 with 0, we get 1. When we add up 1 with 1, we get a value of, in this case you might say that when we were doing the addition operation, when we added up 1 with 1, we used to get a value of 10. You remember that when we added up two ones together, in my previous video I told you that when we add up ones and ones we get a value of 10, but in this case, as you can see, we are getting 1 only. Instead of, we are writing 1, we are not writing 10, we are not writing 0. So in this case you can remember in this manner that when we are doing the OR operation, yes, it acts as a summation operation or addition operation, but while filling out the value, just fill the carry bit. Okay, the carry bit here is 1, not the usual bit. So the carry bit 1 is being filled up. In this manner, I won't say it's a thumb rule, but you can say you can understand or you can memorize this in this manner. So the carry bit is being written down. Okay, now let's move on to the next slide. What about NOT operation? This is a truth table for a NOT gate. NOT gate or NOT truth table is fairly easy to understand. NOT gate representation of a NOT gate is done in this manner. So this is a symbol for a NOT gate. So the truth table for the Boolean NOT operator is shown at the right. So this is what they are talking about. The truth table for the Boolean NOT operator is shown here. The NOT operation is most often designated by an overbar. What is that overbar? As you can see, this bar they are talking about, overbar. The NOT operation is most often designated by an overbar. It is sometimes indicated by a prime mark. Okay. Sometimes it is indicated with a prime mark. Prime mark is this one, and an elbow, this one. So it can either be written in this manner, the NOT gate, this overbar, or it can be written down in this manner. It's a prime mark, or an elbow, that is this one. So all of these are correct. In different books you will find different notations, but all of them symbolizes a NOT gate. So as you can see, if a value passes through a NOT gate, it's get negated. What do you mean by that? If we pass 0, we will get 1 here. If we pass 1 through a NOT gate, we will get 0 at the output. Okay, so this is what we get. Okay, now let's get into the next slide. A Boolean function has at least one Boolean variable, at least one Boolean operator, at least one input from the set 0, 1. So these are, you can say, thumb rules, some of the thumb rules. So the Boolean function should satisfy these conditions. So it produces an output that also there is also a member of the set 0 and 1. Now you know why the binary numbering system is so handy in digital systems, right? So now let's get into the next part. Now let's get into a Boolean function. Let's say, try to understand this one. X, Y, Z is a function of f. Writing this means there are three variables, those are x, y and z. You can say input variables, and they are function of f. And the given function is this one, x z bar plus y is shown at the right. To make evaluation of the Boolean function easier, the truth table contains extra shaded columns to hold evaluations of the subparts of the function. So instead of writing this part, we could have easily discarded this part. This is not needed actually for understanding this one, but for better understanding I tried to keep this as it is, so that it can be divided into subparts and it becomes more easier for you to understand. So I will suggest you to pause the video for a while, and once you are done, please let me know. Pause the video for 30 seconds, try to understand this, and once you are done, please let me know. Okay, I hope you have gone through this one. So as you can see, there are three inputs. Those are x, y, and z. And the input numbers can be written as this one. So as you can see, first we started with this one. So as I was telling you that you see, uh, first we wrote 0 here. 0 can be written as 3 zeros, then 1, this is 2, this is 3, then 4 is 100, 5 is 101, 6 is 110, 7 is 111. So all these values in x, y and z can be considered as an input, individual inputs. So we are being asked to find out x z prime plus y, or x z bar plus y. If we try to do that, how can we do this? So as you can see, x is getting multiplied with z bar. So z bar, as you can see here, we have a z value of 0. So if we try to negate this one or pass it through a NOT gate, we will get 1 here. Z bar, 0 becomes 1, 1 becomes 0, 0 again becomes 1 here. Here also this 1 becomes 0, this 0 becomes 1, this 1 becomes 0, this 0 becomes 1, this 1 becomes 0. Now let's turn our focus to multiply this x z bar with x. Now that we have this z bar, this should be multiplied with x, right? So if we multiply 0 with 1, we get 0. Multiplication is fairly simple, I guess. Even in binary multiplication is quite simple. So this 0 getting multiplied with 1 gives us 0 here. This 0 getting multiplied with 0 gives us 0. 0 getting multiplied with 1 gives us 0. Then again this 0 getting multiplied with this 0 gives us 0. This 1 getting multiplied with 1 gives us 1. This one getting multiplied with 0 gives 0. This one getting multiplied with this one gives us 1. This one getting multiplied with 0 gives us 0. Fine. So this is x z bar. X z bar should be added with y. Where is this y? Y is this much. Now that we have this y should be added up with this value. So this 0 and this 0 when added up together gives us a value of 0. Fine. So I am not going to tell you all the answer. This is how the process goes. So let's talk about the last one. This y is getting added with x z bar. So as you can see, this 1 getting added with 0 gives us a value of 1, right? Isn't it? Let's talk about another value. Let's say if we have this one, let's take this one. here we have this 1, this one, y plus x of z bar, that is 1 also. So 1 and 1 added together 1, this one and this one added together gives us a value of 1 again. If you remember from the previous slide where we discussed how to add two binary numbers, it shouldn't be that much difficult. In that one also we told that if we add 1 and 1 together we get a value of 10. But if you are supposed to write down only one digit of, or if we are supposed to perform as an adder, or if we are supposed to work by taking an OR gate. OR gate acts as a summation or adder. So in this case also, as you can see, this one, there is a plus sign in between that actually tells us that it is acting as an OR gate. OR gate acts as an adder, so we can say it's working as an OR gate. If we are passing an input through an OR gate, 1 plus 1 gives us 10, fine, but in that case we only have to write down the carry bit, you can say. So 1 plus 1 gives us 10, but instead of writing 10 we are writing down only 1 because of this OR gate, you can say, or because of this error. Anyways, so as with common arithmetic, Boolean operations have rules of precedence. The NOT operator has the highest priority, followed by and the NOR gate. So this is what you need to remember. Okay, so this is the precedence order. The NOT operator has the highest priority, then AND gate, and then OR gate. So as you can see, we have first solved the NOT operation, then we did the AND operation. AND operation is nothing but multiplication, and once the multiplication is done, then we moved on to the OR gate, that is this summation part, this sum part. So this is the precedence order you need to remember. This is the precedence order for the Boolean operation. This is how we choose the shaded function subparts in our table. I hope you have understood this one, and if I give you another function, I believe that you will be able to solve. So I will give another function for your homework. Try to do it at your home, and tell me your answer in the next class. Okay, so digital computers contain circuits that implement Boolean functions. The simpler that we can make a Boolean function, the smaller the circuit that will result. Simpler circuits are cheaper to build, consume less power, and it runs faster than the complex circuits. With this in mind, we always want to reduce our Boolean function to their simplest form. This is what we try to do. We always want to reduce our Boolean function to their simplest form. There are a number of Boolean identities that help us to do this. So most Boolean identities have an AND form as well as an OR form. We give our identities using both forms. Our first group is rather intuitive. So I tried to mention some of the identity names or some of the laws here, and it will be useful when we will be solving some numerical problems. Try to understand this one. The first thing is called the first column. This column gives the numbers or gives you some sort of idea about the AND form. This column gives you some sort of idea about the OR form. This thing is called the identity law. When this 1 is getting added with any number, it gives the value of the number itself. 1 getting multiplied with x gives us a value of x. But in OR form, identity law changes its form. When 0 is getting added with a number, it gives the number itself. So identity law, as you can say, it changes for the OR form, it gets changed for the AND form and the OR form, right? In the AND form, it's getting multiplied with 1, but the same identity law for the OR form, it's actually getting added with 0. The null law. In the AND form, when 0 getting multiplied with any number gives us a value of 0 itself. But in the OR form, when 1 gets added with a number, when 1 plus x gives us a value of 1. Why is that? Now it becomes a problem. Can you tell why I have written this, or is it the right way to do? Have I done it the right way? 1 plus x equals 1. Is it the right thing to write? You try to think about this one. Try to think about this one. 1 and then plus x. Are we supposed to get 1 in this case? If yes, why should we write this? Why not something else? Anyway, so let's get into the idempotent law. When two numbers are multiplied together in binary, they are supposed to get the same number. X and x multiplied together, we are supposed to get x. In the OR form, the idempotent law becomes this: x plus x becomes x. The inverse law. Inverse law, when x can be any number, it can be, let's say, 1 or 0. So let's try to talk about this one. Inverse law, if you are unable to understand, don't panic, just see this. Let's say if you have 1 here, the value of x is 1, so x bar will be 0, right? So 1 multiplied with 0, what we are supposed to get? We are supposed to get 0 itself, right? 0. Is it matching with our final answer? Yes, of course. What about, let's take x as 0. So in that case, x bar will be 1. So 0 getting multiplied with 1 gives us a value of 0 here, right? What about this? X plus x bar. In this case, we are adding up together. You see, this is in the OR format. We are doing the inverse law. So Again, if we have a value of 1 in x, so x bar will be 0, 1 plus 0 should give us 1. Fine. What if we have a value, x value as 0? We try to add up with x bar is 1, 0 plus 1 gives us a value of 1. So you see, we are getting the same answer as our format. Now I asked you a question about this one. 1 plus x. Why we are writing 1 here? This is a question. If we are passing it through an OR gate, so 1 plus 0, you see, 1 plus 0 gives us a value of 1. What about 1 plus 1 gives us a value of 10? But if this is passing through an OR gate, or if it is adding as a addition operation, usually if we are doing the binary addition, we are supposed to get 1. Fine. But if it is, we are only thinking about the OR form, or if it is passing through an OR gate, in the truth table or in the formula we have to write only 1 instead of 10. You can say we are writing the carry bit. In this manner you can remember this one. Okay. So these are the laws you need to remember. It will come in handy when we will be solving some numerical problems. So then we have this laws. First up we have the commutative law, associative law, and distributive law. These are the laws we have, and it has different formats. It varies for AND format and OR format. In the AND format, the commutative law goes like this: x multiplied with y should give us a value of yx. For OR format, x plus y should give us a value of y plus x. Associative law, xy bracket z should give us a value of, as you can see, this bracket position is just only changed, everything else is remaining the same. It was multiplied with xy, now the bracket has changed its position, it got into yz. And what about OR format or form? Here x plus y plus z equals x plus y plus z. The same goes for this one, this OR format as well. The position of the bracket just got changed, right? This is called associative law. And the distributive law goes like this one, okay? X plus yz equals, so do you find any mistake in this one, or is it the right thing to write? Is there any mistake in this part? You try to figure it out. Now let's get into, so let's keep a question mark here. Try to tell me the answer whether this is written correctly or not, or if there is any problem in this one. Let's get into the OR format. For the distributive law, x is getting multiplied with y plus z gives us a value of xy plus xz. So this is how it goes. Now we have the absorption law, the De Morgan's law, and double complement law. These laws are very important for solving numerical problems or for simplification of Boolean logic. You have to remember this one. This is a must, I should say. So our last group of Boolean identities are perhaps the most useful. If you have studied set theory and formal logic, these laws are also familiar to you. I think these laws were also there in your 10th, 11th or 12th class. So absorption law goes like this. We have this one, x multiplied with x plus y gives us x only. What about OR format? This x plus xy should give us a value of this one, x, right? Absorption law itself also changes format for AND form and OR form. Okay, then we have this De Morgan's law. For the AND format, when there is a bar on top of xy, so we will have x bar plus xy bar. What about OR form? X plus y bar should give us a value of x bar, and this plus sign, you see, you can understand it in this manner. You see there, if you have a bar on top of two numbers getting multiplied, so each number is getting divided, this bar coming on top of each digit, and in between initially we had a dot sign, right? They were multiplied together. Instead of, as multiplication was given initially, instead of multiplication we wrote a plus sign in between. So same goes for this one as well. X plus y, on top of this one we have a bar on top. So this bar, so these two digits get separated, x and y. This bar comes on top of each digit, and as we had plus in between, the plus becomes dot, multiplication. In this manner you can remember this thing. Then we have the double complement law. X bar, and on top of that bar we have another bar, gives us a value of x itself. So these logics or these formulas or Boolean identities, whatever you call it, these are very important, and you must remember this one for solving numeric problems. Okay, now one problem is given here. I'm not going to explain this one at the first place. Pause the video, try to understand this one. This slide is self-explanatory. All the laws are, you see, all the laws are given in the right hand corner. If something is not understood, you let me know, but for the time being, please pause the video for 1 minute, try to go through the solution, and once you are done, I will try to recap this one. So your time starts now. Okay, I hope you have gone through this. So as you can see what we have done in the first place. So we have written down this one. In the question paper it was given like this: x plus y, then multiplication x plus y bar, then xz bar, and on top of that we have another bar. Okay, so as you can see here, xz bar, on top of there is another bar. So if we use, in this line we have used De Morgan's law, right? Xz bar, on top of there is another bar, so in between there is a, if nothing is there, we assume that there is a dot sign or multiplication sign, and on top of that, there, as there is a bar, so x bar, instead of multiplication we have written down the addition in between, x bar plus z. Fine. So we have used the De Morgan's law. Then we have used the distributive law, x plus y bar. So x getting multiplied with x gives us x, then we have x y bar, then we got x y, and then we have got y bar, and the remaining part remains the same. Then we did the commutative and distributive laws together. As you can see, we did the commutative and distributive law together, this thing remaining the same as the previous one, but here we did a little bit of simplification. So as you can see from the previous slide, x and x multiplied together gives us a value of x. This remains same. This y bar remains the same as it is, but we have grouped it together, right? And here xy bar, xy, from these two values we have taken x as common digit. You can say we have taken common in between from these two values x. If we take common, then we get y bar plus y bar. Fine. This part again, we are keeping this part same as the previous one, we are not dealing with this still now. So x remains as it is. Y bar gives us a value of 0. If you don't remember, go to the previous slide and try to review that one. Y bar gives us a value of 0. This is called inverse law. Y plus y bar, this gives us a value of 1. This is also inverse law. If you don't remember, I would suggest you again to go back and see the previous slide. I think you should remember this one, and if not, try to memorize these laws, it will come in handy. So y plus y bar gives us a value of 1. Fine. So then we are left out with this x. Here we are left out with what? This thing, you see, this x bar z, here also remaining as it is, and this one we have written down this x plus 0, and here we are multiplying with x. So finally x plus x gives us a value of what? Do you remember that? So using the idempotent law, we can write this, isn't it? And after multiplying x with x bar, we get x bar, and after multiplying x with this z gives us a value of xz. X bar should give us a value of 0. It's called the inverse law. Xz remains as it is. Finally we are left out with the final answer, that is xz. So this is the final answer to our question. Fine. So I think we should end our class here. In the next class we will talk about the logic gates and some extended version of this logics. Okay, so let's end our class here. Try to review the concepts once again. If something is not understood, please feel free to let me know, and you can ping me on WeChat as well. So we will meet again next week, Tuesday. Until then, take care and stay safe.